Hello and welcome to Newsweek South Asia, your one-stop destination for in-depth analysis of security challenges, regional conflicts, and the evolving threat of terrorism. Let's take a look at the headlines first. 5 years after US-Taliban pact, Afghanistan faces repression and extremism. India slams Pakistan at UNHRC, calls it a failed state thriving on instability. And Pakistan-backed terrorists target Indian Army vehicle in Jammu and Kashmir, massive search operation underway. It has been 5 years since the United States and the Taliban signed the historic peace deal in Doha, Qatar. The agreement, hailed at the time as a step towards ending America's longest war, laid out a roadmap for US troop withdrawal and a Taliban commitment to prevent terrorist groups from using Afghan soil. But 5 years later, the legacy of this deal is far from what was promised. Afghanistan today is grappling with a humanitarian crisis, a brutal crackdown on freedoms, and a surge in extremist activities. As the world reflects on this milestone, one question looms large. Did the deal bring peace, or did it simply clear the way for Taliban resurgence? Let's take a look. The Doha Agreement was signed on February 29, 2020, under the Trump administration, setting a conditional framework for America's exit from Afghanistan. It was meant to end nearly 2 decades of war. The deal was simple. The US would gradually pull out its troops, while the Taliban pledged to prevent terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda from operating within the country. The agreement also called for intra-Afghan peace talks, a process that was supposed to include all Afghan stakeholders in shaping the country's future.
But we're just at the beginning. Furthering the cause of peace will require serious work and sacrifice by all sides. The United States, the coalition, the Taliban, the Afghan government, other Afghan leaders, and the Afghan people themselves to maintain the momentum needed to reach a comprehensive, inclusive, and durable peace.
But what followed was not peace. Instead, the US withdrawal, which was finalized by August 2021, led to the rapid and shocking collapse of the Afghan government. The world watched in disbelief as Taliban fighters marched into Kabul, reclaiming power with barely any resistance. The Afghan army, which had been trained and equipped by the United States, melted away. The images from Kabul airport, people desperately clinging to American planes, families trying to escape a regime they feared, became the defining moments of America's chaotic exit.
U.S. military flights have ended, and our troops have departed Afghanistan. A new chapter of America's engagement with Afghanistan has begun. As of today, we've suspended our diplomatic presence in Kabul and transferred our operations to Doha, Qatar.
The Taliban's return to power marked the beginning of a new and darker chapter for Afghanistan. Human rights, particularly those of women and minorities, have been decimated. Girls have been systematically excluded from secondary schools and universities. Women have been forced out of most workplaces, including government offices, NGOs, and media houses. Public punishments, flogging, and executions have made a grim return to Afghan streets. A generation that had grown up with hopes of equality and progress has been pushed back into oppression.
The way Taliban came back, a lot of analysts have written it's a Taliban 2.0. They are going to respect human rights. But at least in the case of women, we can see that there is no such thing. They haven't granted any freedom. Schools are closed. Women cannot go to work. All of them are, their spaces are limited within or inside the home. They cannot even get out. They were in colleges. We had Afghan students here as well at that point of a time. Now everything has been cut off. The women are not allowed to go to the colleges, can't take jobs. Even the girls are not allowed to go to school. New kind of dictates are coming up that going to the public is now extremely difficult for a woman. And the unfortunate part is that the international community has ignored this.
Journalists too have faced the full force of Taliban repression. Since taking power, the Taliban have shut down independent media outlets, detained reporters, and imposed strict censorship. Press freedom, once a fragile but growing part of Afghan society, has been virtually erased. The Taliban's iron grip on information ensures that dissenting voices are silenced and the world sees only what they wanted to see.
They have said to the world that they are going to control ISIS. Americans believe that they are going to control ISIS, and there are rifts between Taliban and ISIS because both of them are fighting for the same space. They are trying to do something, but there has been attack in Afghanistan as well by ISIS. So we have to wait and watch. But there is a but here, and it relates to the point that ISIS has increased its capacity in Afghanistan, and that's a worrying point for all of us.
Despite their claims of maintaining security, Afghanistan has remained a hotbed for terrorist activities. ISIS-K, the Taliban's biggest rival, has carried out multiple deadly attacks, targeting civilians, diplomatic missions, and even religious gatherings. The Taliban's promise to sever ties with Al-Qaeda has also come under question. The killing of Al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri in a US drone strike in Kabul in 2022 exposed the Taliban's continued links with the global terror network. This has only fueled concerns that Afghanistan is once again becoming a safe haven for extremism. On the international front, the Taliban's rule has left Afghanistan isolated. The world has refused to recognize the regime, leading to a freezing of Afghan assets and crippling economic sanctions. Yet, some nations, particularly China, Russia, Pakistan, and Iran, have maintained ties with the Taliban, each pursuing their own strategic interests. While Western nations continue to impose diplomatic pressure, the Taliban have remained defiant, showing no sign of reversing their oppressive policies. 5 years after the US-Taliban peace deal, Afghanistan stands at a crossroads. The war may have ended, but the country is anything but stable. What was promised as a pathway to peace has in reality left Afghanistan in turmoil, its people abandoned, its freedoms erased, and its future uncertain. In a scathing rebuke at the 7th session of the 58th UN Human Rights Council, India delivered a sharp counter to Pakistan's habitual propaganda, branding it as a failed state that thrives on instability and survives on international handouts. Kshitiz Tyagi, representing India's permanent mission to the UN in Geneva, dismantled Pakistan's narrative, accusing it of peddling misinformation dictated by its military terrorism complex. A report.
Pakistan is even making a mockery of the OIC.
Speaking at the United Nations Human Rights Council, India's representative, Kshitiz Tyagi, did not hold back in condemning Pakistan's continuous attempts to spread falsehoods against India. He lambasted Pakistan for exploiting international forums to push anti-India agenda while ignoring its own internal chaos.
Second,
India reaffirmed its strong stance on Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, rejecting Pakistan's attempts to internationalize the issue. Tyagi highlighted the region's political, social and economic progress as proof of India's commitment to stability.
It is regrettable, yet unsurprising, to see Pakistan's so-called leaders and delegates continuing to dutifully spread falsehoods handed down by its military terrorist complex. Pakistan is even making a mockery of the OIC by abusing it as its mouthpiece, which is fooling nobody. We do not wish to dignify such propaganda, but are constrained to make a few simple points for the record. First, the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh were, are, and will always remain an integral and inalienable part of India. Second, the unprecedented political, social, and economic progress in Jammu and Kashmir in the past few years speaks for itself. These successes are a testament to the people's trust in the government's commitment to bring normalcy to a region scarred by decades of Pakistan-sponsored cross-border terrorism.
India's robust counter comes as Pakistan continues its habitual attempts to mislead the international community with its outdated Kashmir rhetoric. Despite Islamabad's relentless efforts, the global community has largely recognized Pakistan's Kashmir obsession as nothing more than a smokescreen to deflect attention from its own failures. India also launched a pointed critique of Pakistan's abysmal human rights record, exposing the country's systematic persecution of minorities, enforced disappearances, and its role as a safe haven for UN-designated terrorists. With rampant enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, Pakistan has become a textbook example of a state that tramples on human rights while audaciously lecturing others on the matter.
As a country where human rights abuses, persecution of minorities, and systematic erosion of democratic values constitute state policies, and which brazenly harbors UN-sanctioned terrorists, Pakistan is in no position to lecture anyone. Instead of its unhealthy obsession with India, Pakistan should focus on providing actual governance and justice to its own people. Mr. President, it is unfortunate that this Council's time continues to be wasted by a failed state, which thrives on instability and survives on international handouts. Its rhetoric reeks of hypocrisy, its actions of inhumanity, and its governance of incompetence. India remains focused on democracy, progress, and ensuring dignity for its people, values that Pakistan would do well to learn from.
While India strides towards progress and development, Pakistan remains trapped in a cycle of political instability and economic decay. Inflation is at all-time high, with essential commodities becoming unaffordable for its citizens. The country's reliance on financial aid from China and the IMF further highlights its governance failures. India's response follows a recent statement by India's permanent representative to the UN, Ambassador P. Harish, who reaffirmed that Jammu and Kashmir is and will remain an integral part of India. While Pakistan continues to push false propaganda, India has consistently demonstrated its commitment to peace, stability, and progress in the region.
India remains focused on democracy, progress, and ensuring dignity for its people.
A fresh wave of violence has struck India's Jammu and Kashmir as Pakistan-backed terrorists targeted an Indian army vehicle near the line of control in Rajouri's Sundarbani sector. This latest assault underscores the persistent challenge of cross-border terrorism, with terrorists using the rugged terrain to infiltrate and target Indian forces. In response, Indian security forces have launched a large-scale search operation, deploying advanced surveillance tools to track down the attackers. We have a report.
Indian security forces have intensified their counter-terrorism operations in Jammu and Kashmir following an attack on the army convoy near the line of control in Rajouri's Sundarbani sector. On February 26, terrorists suspected to have infiltrated from Pakistan opened fire at an army vehicle, triggering a large-scale cordon and search operation. The terror attack, executed by Pakistan-backed militants hiding in the dense forest, led to an immediate deployment of security forces. Advanced technology, drones, and sniffer dogs are being used to track down the perpetrators. Such operations have now been extended to additional areas to prevent their escape.
हमने ये तकरीबन 1.5 घंटा पहले सुना था कि जहां पर फाल एरिया में जहां फायरिंग हुई है, जिस पहाड़ पर इस वक्त हम जहां पहुंचे हुए हैं, तो हम भी जहां पर पहुंचे और ऐसा लगता है कि आप सभी जानते हैं कि ये हिंदुओं का बहुत बड़ा पर्व है, जो महाशिवरात्रि का पर्व है। हो सकता है इसमें कोई साजिश हो किसी की, इस पर्व में थोड़ी खलल डालने की कोशिश की गई हो। तो जहां आप सभी जानते हैं कि सुंदरबनी का जो एरिया है, ये काफी अमन वाला एरिया रहा है पिछले काफी सालों से, आप जहां पर देख रहे हैं। तो लेकिन शायद इन्होंने मंदिर को टारगेट करने की कोशिश की हो, जहां पर आप जानते हैं कि बहुत बड़ा मंदिर है बनपुरी सतगुरु बाबा काशीकर जो चैरिटेबल ट्रस्ट है। उसके बाद हमारे पीछे जहां पर फाल के थोड़ा आगे आप जानते हैं एक बहुत बड़ा प्राचीन मंदिर गंदे मंदिर है, शिव दोनों शिव के मंदिर हैं। तो हो सकता है वहां पर इन्होंने यात्रियों को टारगेट करने की कोशिश की हो और रास्ते में जो हमारे जो बहादुर जवान जो थे आर्मी के, उनकी गाड़ी पर टारगेट किया गया। वहां पर 2 या 3 राउंड हमने जो सुना है कि फायरिंग वहां पर की गई है, तो वहां पर उन्होंने खल डालने की कोशिश की है। लेकिन हमारे जो बहादुर जवान है, चाहे आर्मी के हो, सीआरपी हो, या बीएसएफ हो, या जेकेपी हो, इन्होंने उस जो उन्होंने खल डालने की कोशिश की उसको नाकाम किया है।
Repeated attempts at destroying the peace of India by Pakistan is not a new phenomenon. India's Jammu and Kashmir face a continuous disregard of the ceasefire agreements from Pakistan, regular intervention of drones that drop illegal weapons and drug packages on Indian soil, and allies of the enemy that work as a helping hand in terror financing the ill intentions of Pakistan here in India. Pakistan provides training and funding to terrorists to infiltrate Jammu and Kashmir and launch attack on security forces and civilians. The rugged and mountainous terrain offer these infiltrators opportunities to evade Indian security forces and carry out their missions. Such interventions from Pakistan continue even when its economy is on a slippery slope, inflation is uncontrollable, politics even after the change of many governments remain unstable, and the army has created a system where it can take over the civilian government anytime if they wish to. All while the general public has to struggle for gathering even basic resources for their survival.
You see their economy where it is, you see their education system where it is, you see the standard of living where it is, and you see the atrocities being committed on the minorities, what it is. So, only place where they are successful is, they are trying to be successful is spreading terror. Now this sort of a effort will keep carrying on because right now Pakistan is rattled totally.
To counter all attempts and maintain peace in Jammu and Kashmir, India has put in place a properly structured infrastructure that works around the clock to pursue insurgents sent and supported by Pakistan, so that the humble and hardworking people of Jammu and Kashmir can go to their lives unhindered. Working on many levels, India's BSF shoots down the drone that deliver drug and munition bundles to Indian land, while NIA raid disrupt the terror financing network that provides a financial framework for terrorists in India. Furthermore, a deep-rooted Indian intelligence network offers information on which the police and the army undertake ground counter-terrorism operations, ensuring that the peace in the Union territory is always maintained even despite Pakistan's repeated nefarious attempts.
The people of Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan continue to face systematic neglect and broken promises from the Pakistani state. The Diamar Bhasha Dam, once touted as a transformative project for the region, has instead become a symbol of exploitation and displacement. Despite assurances of compensation and development, thousands of families remain without land, livelihood or support. POGB has long been subjected to political and economic marginalization, denied constitutional recognition and basic rights, while its vast natural resources are harnessed for Pakistan's national projects. The grievances surrounding the Diamar Bhasha Dam only add to the growing discontent in the region. Our report.
Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan has long been subjected to political and economic marginalization by the Pakistani state. The region remains constitutionally ambiguous, denied representation in Pakistan's National Assembly and Senate. POJB lacks autonomy, with major decisions regarding its governance dictated by Islamabad. The Diamar Bhasha Dam project, initially proposed in early 2000, was meant to be a cornerstone of Pakistan's energy and water management strategy. However, rather than benefiting the local population, it has only increased their suffering, displacing thousands without adequate compensation.
कल से बल्कि 2 दिनों से दियामर के अंदर पूरी पब्लिक बिला तफरीक कौमियत, बिला तफरीक अलाकियत इस वक्त रोड के अंदर सरापा एहतजाज है। सिर्फ एक ही बात उनका डिमांड है कि वापडा जो हमारे साथ ज़्यादती कर रही है वो ज़्यादती न करें और हमें हमारा हक मिलना चाहिए, जिसमें बहुत सारे मुतालिबात हैं। जो वापडा 2010 में मुआहदा उन्होंने किया उस पर अमल दरामद नहीं हुआ, फिर मुलाजमतों के हवाले से 2021 में वहाँ पे मुआहदे हुए, उस पर वो अमल दरामद नहीं हो रहा।
The ongoing protests revolve around WAPDA's repeated failure to deliver on its commitment. At the heart of the unrest lies the promise of 6 canal of agricultural land to displaced families, an assurance made in 2010 and repeated in 2021, yet never fulfilled. Despite multiple rounds of negotiation, neither the federal government nor the local authorities have provided any meaningful resolution.
जो ज़्यादतियाँ वहाँ हो रही है वो अब एक बम की सूरत में आके पूरे दियामर के अंदर वो फटने के करीब है। लोग केकेएच के साइड पे बैठे हुए और ज़िम्मेदारी का मुजाहरा कर रहे हैं। हालांकि केकेएच यहाँ हमारे पूरे चीन को वो लिंक कर रहा होता है और हमारी माशियत का एक तरीके से बेस यही केकेएच का रास्ता है शहर कराकुरम का, और इतनी ज़िम्मेदारी का एहसास कर रहे हैं रियासत की खातिर कि बंद करके ब्लॉक करके पाकिस्तान को नुकसान न पहुंचाया जाए। इसलिए उन्होंने पूरी रात केकेएच के साइड पे बैठ के धरना दिया हुआ है और इस वक्त भी वो साइड पे रोड उन्होंने खोला हुआ है। इससे बड़ी जिम्मेदारी का मुजाहरा तो नहीं हो सकता, और बार बार वो चीख रहे हैं कि हमें हमारा हक दो, जिससे वो न गवर्नमेंट टच से मस हो रही है न वापडा टच से मस हो रहा है।
While POGB is home to vast natural resources, including water reserves, crucial for Pakistan energy needs, its people see little to no benefit. The Diamar Bhasha Dam, a multi-billion-dollar project, is expected to generate 4,500 megawatts of electricity. Yet, POGB still remains underdeveloped, with inadequate electric supply and a crumbling infrastructure. Despite the strategic importance, the region lacks proper school, healthcare facilities, and job opportunities, further pushing the local people into economic hardship.
This WAPDA, which is called the Water and Power Development Authority, has actually become a water grab, annexation, plunder, displacement, and appropriation organization. They are grabbing the water of the people of Gilgit-Baltistan. They are annexing the land because the land on which this dam is being built is basically the land of Gilgit-Baltistan. But the generators are going to be fixed in KPK, which is also originally the land of Gilgit-Baltistan. Can you see the level of fraud and exploitation that the people of Gilgit-Baltistan are suffering? So that the income generated from that dam does not count as the income of Gilgit-Baltistan, but as the income of Pakistan.
Pakistan's failure to address the grievances of POGB is not new. The region suffers from chronic political underrepresentation, economic stagnation, and a lack of basic services. While POGB's strategic location and resources are exploited for Pakistan's national projects, its people remain marginalized and voiceless.
Nothing has happened. Nobody has given employment from the local area. They are all coming from Punjab and KPK. and that has caused a lot of resentment, and the political and economic marginalization of the people of POJK has now peaked. You cannot find jobs there, you cannot find even political representation. Can you believe it that for 77 years, Pakistan has not allowed political representation to the people of POGB, Pakistani occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, in the National Assembly. All decisions regarding economy, even political decisions, are not made in Gilgit-Baltistan. They are made in Islamabad. People are accused Islamabad of treating Gilgit-Baltistan as its colony.
Demonstrators have maintained a peaceful stance, conducting overnight sittings along the critical Karakoram highway without obstructing traffic. The protesters have issued a stern warning. If their demands are not met, they will escalate their movement with further disruptions expected. The Hakook Do Dam Banao protesters have set deadline for authorities, demanding immediate action, failing which large demonstrations and potential roadblocks could paralyze the region.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.